we have two extremely media-savvy politicians here. And I think what we're seeing here is some low energy from him. He's feeling the pressure. He's feeling quite tense. What I'm seeing here is a Donald Trump who is a little bit, let's just say, perhaps fatigued. I'm Dr. Beth Dawson, and I'm a body language expert. And I have been analyzing body language for over 20 years.
Best I have. Ready, face? Ready, step?
President Trump, showing your message to the people of Ukraine as world leaders gathered here today.
We love them. We love them.
Russia continues attacks in the defending Kharkiv.
Thank you very much, everybody.
What I noticed initially, what's very, very interesting. So, of course, Donald Trump, extremely, he's extremely media savvy. He's a politician. He knows exactly how he should be standing. There's absolutely no, nothing there. But what is really interesting, what we see with this, in this initial part of the clip, is what we call the fist bump. But we see a limp fist bump. Now, this is actually really interesting. So a fist bump is, obviously, we all know a fist bump. It's a gesture of victory, enthusiasm, solidarity. It's typically short, sharp. There's a lot of energy to it. But what we see here, if we're looking at this video here, he's waiting for Zelensky to arrive, and he does the fist bump. He's probably doing this to the press, but he drops it. So we see like a limp fist bump. It's actually a very half-hearted gesture. It's very interesting. And I think what we have to think about here and what we have to remember is the context. What I'm seeing here is a Donald Trump who is a little bit, let's just say, perhaps fatigued. I'm thinking that this is more about the low energy as opposed to a lack of conviction. Sometimes when we see a limp fist bump, it can also mean that somebody is not really believing it. Somebody's not really kind of, somebody's not, it's half-hearted. I think when we think about the context, and in body language, it's always extremely important to think about context. We can't just analyze gestures in isolation. Context is everything. Donald Trump has been through some very intense, meetings. He's had a busy few days. And I think what we're seeing here is some low energy from him. It's a little bit more about he's going through the motions. What we also see, though, and this is very interesting, is we see his mouth is clenched. Now, a mouth tension is actually harder to fake. This can indicate stress. This can indicate restraint. I think what we're seeing here is Donald Trump. He knows that, these meetings are obviously, high stakes. The world is watching. He's feeling the pressure. He's feeling quite tense. The car arrives. We see a handshake. So we see Donald Trump leaning in to this handshake. Now, what we have to remember again is there is a height difference. Okay, so the height difference, the fact that he's leaning in, sometimes when somebody is leaning into a handshake, this can indicate dominance. This can indicate a need or a want to, to control or to dominate the other person. But what I think we're seeing here, because we also see, the neck is inclined. He's holding out his other hand towards Zelensky. We see that both men are making eye contact. Both men are looking at each other. And I think what we're seeing here is more of a practical, more of a polite gesture as opposed to a dominance. When there's a height difference, leaning in, we often say it can be more of a practical, it's a way to close the gap. It's more of a practical, polite gesture. And it just makes the handshake look a little less awkward for the cameras. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I don't think it's a question of dominance. So we even see Donald Trump putting his hand on Zelensky's shoulder. This is a very fraternal gesture. So again, this can also be a gesture of dominance, but I don't think that's what we're seeing here. I think this is more a gesture of reassurance, connection. I think that's what we're seeing here. We see Zelensky putting his hand on top of Donald Trump's hand. So this gesture, again, can be a gesture of dominance. I don't think that's what we're seeing here from Zelensky. What we always have to remember in body language, you always have to remember and think about baseline. Now, baseline communication is what we're usually seeing in somebody's communication style. Now, Zelensky is not somebody, his style is more of a, approachability, solidarity, more of a style. The fact that he is putting his hand on top of Donald Trump's hand is more the fact that he wants to say, I value this connection. I'm putting some sincerity into this handshake. I think that's what we're seeing here, as opposed to somebody who is trying to dominate. Let's not forget that we have two extremely media savvy politicians here. So when we think about their background, what do we know about them? Of course, we know about Zelensky, comedian. He's a man who's very used to performing for the cameras. He's extremely media savvy. He's very at ease in front of the cameras. And again, and Donald Trump, of course, he's often referred to as the showman. He's very at ease as well. It's a lot about performance, a lot about the gestures as well. So these two politicians are extremely media savvy. But I think we're seeing some genuine gestures of connection. And so I think that's what we're seeing here with this handshake. And we see them both smiling and looking at each other. And look at the video. If we look at the video, we see that Zelensky, he is prolonging the eye contact with Donald Trump. He keeps looking at Donald Trump. So again, we have these, gestures, this body language that's signaling what we want to make a connection. We're here to make a connection. They're not looking away from each other. We can see some genuine aspects of their smiles in the way that their eyes are crinkling. And that's really interesting when we see that. We see that when they're looking at each other. We see that during the handshake. But as soon as they face the press, we see something slightly different. Immediately from Donald Trump, we see Donald Trump who immediately stands up taller. Now, it's very interesting. In this very short clip, I saw that Donald Trump was, standing up taller, resetting what we call in body language, resetting his posture. Posture, as we know, is often, it's a sign in body language, is a sign of authority, leadership. Donald Trump turns to face the press. He immediately resets his posture. He stands up taller. This is all about performance. This is all about, here I am. I'm the, I'm in control. I'm the leader. And it's more about the performance and the image, as opposed to, anything else. But it's interesting because we also see on his face, we see on his facial expressions that the face suddenly becomes a little bit more closed when he's facing the press. There's a question that the press ask him.
President Trump, show your message to the people of Ukraine as world leaders gathered here today.
We love them.
Donald Trump immediately says, we love them. So he's standing tall and he says, we love them. Again, we have this mouth, we have this lip clenching. So lip clenching, and, we all know this when we're, clenching our lips, it can be a sign of emotional control. It can also be a sign of restraint, holding something back, not necessarily saying everything you want to say. So, we see this lip, this lip clenching, and we see them looking at the press. So I think that's what's going on here. I think that there's a lot of holding back. There's some restraint. We see Zelensky turning to look at Donald Trump. There's a lot of turning to look at Donald Trump. So again, there's also a point where he's kind of almost looking up at Donald Trump, and you get a sense of, the boy with the father kind of a scenario. Obviously there, again, we have to think about the context. There is the height difference. But what's significant is the prolonged eye contact. So again, we have a clear indicator that both of these men are here to make a connection. They're here to, I value this connection. We're here to make the effort. I think the other thing that's very interesting as well, just at the end of this short clip. So Donald Trump, he's thanking the press. He's thanking the press. He's putting his arm on Zelensky. He's, drawing him in. But we see some repeated posture resets with Donald Trump. Donald Trump repeatedly pulling himself upright. So what we know is, think about it ourselves, when we are tired, how much we slump. So, when somebody is feeling a little bit tired, a little bit weary, we tend to say their posture, it follows. You can see, we have that expression, somebody, with the world on their shoulders, and you can sort of get this sense that somebody's feeling a little bit, world weary, tired. And I think that what we're seeing here with Donald Trump, with some of the posture resets, is someone who is a little bit fatigued. He's feeling a little bit weary. I think what's interesting as well is to perhaps consider the difference between, Donald Trump when he was greeting Putin and Donald Trump when he's greeting Zelensky. Now, obviously, situation is not the same. They're not in the same physical space. But as I said, politics is all about symbols, performance. What we saw with Putin, we had that very symbolic red carpet. What exactly does that signify? Red carpet is when we're, for somebody important. We had that very symbolic red carpet. We saw a very energetic Putin, walking very energetically up the red carpet. We saw some very genuine smiles, genuine connection, and we saw Donald Trump applauding. So there was very much of an idea of, a little bit more of a sort of more of a pomp and ceremony, a bit more performance associated with, his greeting of Putin as opposed to Zelensky. But remember, of course, context as well is important. They're not in the same space. They're not arriving in the same mode of transport. With Zelensky, it's a little more low key in terms of a greeting, and that's actually interesting as well to observe.